Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge news. I talked about a little bit of this in the segment prior to the one you're watching, so check out that segment. Hit subscribe right now. We're almost at 196,000 subs. We're right at 200,000 subscribers, and it's because of you. Tell your friends about this channel. Special Counsel John Durham wants to bring up Trump-Russia dossier at trial against Clinton campaign lawyer. That's CNN today. Well, obviously, the dossier is going to be brought up in every indictment. That's part of the factual background which is within every indictment. They purchased a compilation of deceitful, fabricated, baseless lies and allegations against Trump, and they called that raw intelligence. They would never allow the reverse to take place. In fact, you had emails from the vice president and future president's son that showed clear schemes. How can you use your influence on behalf of the company? I mean, it's right there. There are laws against what is within those emails, but we couldn't talk about that. That's why Elon Musk purchased 9 or 10% of Twitter, because the New York Post account was literally suspended for telling the truth. And BuzzFeed and Mother Jones and other publications are applauded for actually peddling baseless allegations and lies against Trump. But here you have a Sussman text message. So this is from Technofog. He's on Substack. He's a lawyer. John Durham, Michael Sussman, and the broader Clinton, let's just say, plot. Text messages from Sussman prove his lies. So the text message that I talked about in my last segment was this: Jim. Sussman, the Clinton paid attorney, the attorney hired by Madam Secretary. Okay, the attorney hired by Madam Secretary to spread baseless claims against Trump. That attorney to spread baseless claims against Trump was hired to obtain a whole bunch of information from surveillance. And he used a tech executive that also could possibly be indicted as well, and a whole bunch of researchers. They engaged in surveillance of Trump's offices, his apartment, including the executive office of the president, while Trump was in the Oval Office. So these people are like, oh my God, news that isn't accurate is hurting our society. That's the only thing they try to communicate, is half-truths and lies by omission. When somebody says, well, Trump, actually, Sussman obtained that information along with the tech executive and researchers from an existing contract in when President Obama's administration. Okay, but the surveillance went through February of 2017. Who was president then? Oh, that's right, Donald J. Trump. So they were engaged in surveillance of Trump while he was president also. The Steele dossier allowed all of this to take place. But in addition to the lies within the Steele dossier, and hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen, to my new Patreons, thank you. If you want to support my work long term, my Patreon is below in the pinned comment. Your support is greatly appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. The text message that Sussman sent to James Baker, James Comey's top legal counsel, is the following. Quote, Jim, it's Michael Sussman. I have something time-sensitive and sensitive I need to discuss. Do you have availability for a short meeting tomorrow? I'm coming on my own, not on behalf of a client or company. Want to help the Bureau. Thanks. Now, if he's not... Okay, this is obviously a blatant lie. Sussman's defense team is mounting the worst defense possible. The absolute worst defense possible. All they have to do is simply say, yeah, we tried to set up and frame Trump, and the FBI was in on it. Instead, what they're doing is, through CNN and others, they're saying, well, this is unfair. Conservative media is making, very provocative comments that the Democrats and media and others were trying to set up and frame Trump, and that's just wrong. See, it's right there. We see everything. Madam Secretary didn't buy the dossier herself. She had her law firm, the law firm Sussman worked for, in addition to a specific attorney cited within Trump's lawsuit, to purchase the dossier for her. That dossier was then filtered through publications like the BuzzFeed, Mother Jones, and of course then the Washington Post and New York Times, and every other public relations firm then said, oh my God, Trump, this ties into what Clapper and Brennan said with a high to moderate confidence assessment. So you have all of these different parts moving in one location. Well, Trump had to have worked with the Kremlin. That's the only way he defeated Clinton. And the Alpha Bank story, which was what Sussman, the server story, the story where the nonsensical, irrational, complete hoax, the bogus myth of the Steele dossier and of the server where, so Clinton had servers with top secret and special access program intelligence on them. Nobody from Sussman to Peter Strzok to Comey to anyone at that law firm knows exactly how, or maybe they do, top secret and special access program went from secure government locations onto servers outside of the United States government run by Clinton and her team. That James Comey went to bat for Madam Secretary and said there was no intent. By the way, I want a Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump 2024 rematch. That is, I'm not being facetious or sarcastic. There's no satire there. Sometimes I'll do segments saying, oh yeah, Trump's getting indicted. It's purely satirical. I have no clue why anybody would believe that I'm actually, thinking he's going to get indicted or believe he should. But you could check those segments out. But I actually do want a Clinton-Trump rematch because you can't go ahead and pay Sussman and Danchenko and get Kleinsmith to lie to FISA judges. And we're going to have, within the next 2 months, almost certainly 1 or 2 indictments within the Durham Probe Special Counsel. And within the next year, probably 3, 4, 5 more indictments. Okay, maybe more. Each indictment within the Durham Probe Special Counsel makes it a lot easier for Donald J. Trump to sue those 40-plus people. You can't defraud, you can't engage in a massive fraud and deceive the United States. That's what they accuse Trump of doing. But that's actually what they did. The epicenter of corruption is the Democratic Party in the United States of America. 20 years ago, the epicenter of corruption was the Republican Party run by Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. Notice that they're all one political party now. You cannot, under 18 U.S. Code 371, buy a dossier, filter it through the United States government, get people like Sussman to lie about server communication between Trump Tower and Alpha Bank, a Moscow bank. You can't, these are all lies. You can't get Jake Sullivan and others to help perpetuate and promulgate these lies. You can't do that under 18 U.S. Code 371, and I wrote about that in The Federalist. You could read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, other publications. You can go to hagoodman.com. But under 18 U.S. Code 371, they knew that Trump was not installed by the Kremlin because there was no intelligence derived from the United States government. How do we know this? We know this from when they indicted Russian intelligence officials. If you read the indictment, which nobody does, the indictment says Company 1, based on Company 1. Company 1 was outsourced by the Democratic Party to say that the Kremlin infiltrated DNC servers to let you know that Bernie Sanders was cheated. Just like the Kremlin let you know that Hunter was engaged in pure pay-to-play schemes. Just like the Ruskies wanted you to know that the Clinton Foundation, all the Bill Clinton Inc., all of those emails showed massive corruption, that they were enriching themselves from their philanthropic organization, quote-unquote philanthropic. And, that was all the corruption within the Democratic Party. Don't you understand? Our adversaries want you to know how corrupt Democrats are, thus forcing you to vote Republican. It's so easy to understand. It's a classic move of Vladimir. It's a classic move. Don't you understand? Are you not smart enough to understand? So that's what they do. Oh, by the way, Bernie Sanders, his campaign was also elevated by that type of plot also. And we know Tulsi Gabbard, according to Hillary Clinton, of course not. She's absolutely wonderful. But anyone who is opposed to the Democratic Party, anybody, it's like their security blanket. They just say, well, you know what? The Ruskies did it. Oh my God, Vladimir did it. Actually, you know what? Trump is asking another country for help pertaining to Clinton's 33,000 deleted emails and Hunter's clear illegal schemes. But that's not the problem. The problem is that he's actually asking our adversary for help to find out how corrupt the Democratic Party is. We can't do that. That's not democracy. Democracy entails that we allow the Democratic corruption to fester and boil and become even more of a problem in terms of national security, where you have congressmen having romantic relationships with political operatives, then going after Madison Cawthorn. Okay? And then whatever, look, this is the mentality. The mentality was, it's just the most vapid, absurd propaganda spin. They were mortified. They were absolutely embarrassed and mortified, indignant, horrified that they had lost to the Orange Menace Trump. So all of these people conspired and worked for the same goal. Under 18 U.S. Code 371, Mueller, others have tried to use that. Watergate, you don't have to actually have a note saying, I, James Comey, and Andrew McCabe, and Peter Strzok, and Michael Sussman, and everyone at that law firm, and all, we are conspiring to set up and frame Trump by utilizing an absurd dossier. And what we're going to do is just allow journalists to spread this false information as well, while we feed the journalists absurd nonsense, so they could then publish the nonsense, and then we could utilize and cite those myths in court. So the Inspector General report said, there was no bias. Well, it just so happened that everyone was working for the same cause, to undermine Trump, to elevate Clinton. But other than that, no bias. There was no testimonial or documentary examples of bias or prosecutorial bias. This is legalese. They say, well, there was nothing in writing and there was no testimony that said we couldn't stand Trump, so we conspired against him. That doesn't mean there was no bias. That means there was no bias where people admitted their contempt and disdain for Trump and their obvious objectives of trying to set him up and frame him. So anyway, I mean, the whole thing is, the thing with this is the following. You have not only this text message, you have every text message. Durham can get every text message the National Security Agency has sent on a government phone, which is every single one that Page and Strzok sent to each other, which is every single one that Comey or McCabe sent, which is every single one that was utilized on a government-issued phone. Now, the National Security Agency has all of that, almost certainly. The Durham probe can get all of that. Hit subscribe to this channel right this second, people. It's heating.